I think it was the guy in the podcast was like, well, we know that restrictive diets aren't sustainable. People are not going to do this, and they're going to have parties, and they're going to jump off of this, and the holidays, and all this stuff. And like he was a little bit incredulous that people would do this, could do this for a sustainable amount of time. And I think of myself, like I've been carnivore pretty strict for 6 years. You've been on low carb
Mm.
pretty easy. We know lots of people in our community that have been low carb for over a decade, and they pull it off quite easily and don't intend to come off it anytime soon. So how would you answer that question or that pushback of like, well, this is a fad. How do you make this sustainable?
Yeah, I think it's certainly hard, but doing hard things makes us better and empowers ourselves. So it depends on how your mindset goes. There's a lot of trainers and doctors saying these diets aren't sustainable, but there's again, so many of my friends can sustain low carb, keto, and depends on your mindset. If you think you can sustain it, then you probably can. And if you keep learning, be curious, look into your body, understand this is a better way of functioning, then it might increase your success rate. And if you slip, it's not the end of the world. You can just get back on, and that's how we can sustain ourselves. So understand it's normal to have a slip up sometimes. Some people make it an 80% rule and 20%, so 80% sticking to the diet, 20% not. And I think that's fine, and that you can have that as a sustainable lifestyle like that. And people who can't sustain this diet and have a slip, it might be because they don't understand the science of it and how good they feel. So looking into it more, being more curious, learning about it more, that might help them with having a better sustainable rate. But if they don't sustain it, that's totally normal as well. And we just have to be more self-compassionate and keep learning about how our body operates.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I really liked in your answer where you said like you're going to be feeling better. And I don't think a lot of people realize how self-motivating trying this type of a diet is because you get more benefits down the road and certain things resolve quickly and some take a little bit longer. Some require people to take that additional step to a very highly strict ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet. But it's paying you back the whole time. Like one step makes you feel a little better, you're going to be more likely to take another step. And those steps start very early on. Like you're talking about like getting started in a 7 day kind of a way and just try it, see how you feel. Like a lot of people feel significantly better and have maybe knocked a few pounds of their weight off in just a week and are maybe feeling a little bit less hungry or a little bit more energy. And yeah, there's a transition period, but it's not as hard as you think because those steps make it better for you as you continue going.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've had lots of patients that come back saying, "Oh, it's not that hard. It's not as hard as I thought it would be." Because I think it's the mindset again, depends on what they tell themselves. Because again, you feel much better, less bloated, lose a bit of weight, a bit more energy, and you sleep better. But the society doesn't help you, and then there's stress, there's the marketing of the sugar industry, processed food industry, and the supermarket is filled with all these processed foods. And then there's your friends telling you, just a bite doesn't help, just a piece of cake, it doesn't matter because they want you to join in to eat all the sugar food. So it's the mindset. You've got to tell yourself that it is easy and then it'll be easy. If you tell yourself it's hard, then it'll get harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
That's a really good point. Another thing that they were kind of talking about in this podcast is they mentioned the concept of like good carbohydrates versus bad carbohydrates. And again, these two podcast hosts, not anti-carbohydrate, which is totally fine. I would say we're probably not either, but there's some context there. So when you hear that term, like a good carbohydrate, a bad carbohydrate, what do you make that same kind of distinction? How do you think of carbohydrates as a macronutrient that is something we can eat? It comes from plants, but do we need it? Is there a difference between good carbs and bad carbs? Like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, yeah. So I agree. A lot of the nutritionists and dietitians encourage you to eat good carbs like the whole grains, sweet potatoes, and the fruit. So I think it depends on the metabolic health of the person. If you are not great in your metabolic health, let's say you're diabetic, overweight, want to lose some weight, highly insulin resistance, and we tested your insulin and it's quite high, then your body doesn't like carbohydrates and glucose. All the carbohydrates become glucose eventually, even if it's good carbs, even if it's the fruit or bananas, even if it's sweet potatoes, whole grain, eventually all those, we call it good carbs, is still carbohydrates and it's still going into your bloodstream as glucose. So it's just slowly going into your blood glucose, into your bloodstream as glucose, rather than the white bread, white potatoes going in much faster. So if you're trying to improve your metabolic health in losing weight or reverse your diabetes, any carbs is still carbs, is still glucose. So that won't be helpful for improving metabolic health. So our body doesn't need glucose. We can totally run on protein and healthy fats. So we don't really need the carbs if it's good or bad. And if you're switching your body fuel system to becoming ketogenic, then you can burn on fat, which again, it is so beneficial with giving you much more energy, making you less hungry if you're in ketosis, and giving your brain a good fuel with fueling on ketones. It makes you less hungry. You are anti-inflammatory with fueling on ketones. And you can burn your own fat. You can get rid of the fat that you don't want. And wouldn't that be good? We can burn the belly fat that we want to get rid of.
Yeah, no, it's the best. One of the hosts of the podcast was asking you specifically about fruit, and this is very much related to, again, carbohydrates, good or bad. I don't really distinguish like, oh, this one's a good carbohydrate, this one's a bad carbohydrate. As you said, the carbohydrates end up as glucose in the blood. It's just kind of a speed rate. How quickly is that
Yeah.
happening, and what's going to be the strength of the signal for insulin? How much insulin are you going to release? So I think of it along those lines. And I also was considering when he was asking you, you live in Melbourne. There must be lots of delicious fruits around. You mentioned something like mangoes. Like, yes, there are fruits around. And right now, when it's 2 degrees outside, there's
Mm-hmm.
not fruit like there is in the supermarket, because we've learned how to transport fruit and
Mm.
produce. We've learned how to do agriculture so we can raise these plants and ship them all over the world. So you could be in the dead of winter in Melbourne and you could have a mango if you want. You could go to Toronto in March and you could have strawberries. I mean, it's summer here in the Salt Lake Valley, and the plants are growing everywhere. And I just walked by a house that's for sale that clearly the people are not living at, but it has a little strawberry patch. And there's like 10 tiny little strawberries that are like the size of your thumb that are growing on it. And the ones that haven't been picked are going bad. You can tell other animals are getting after them. And so I don't necessarily think of like, oh, good carbs, bad carbs. It's almost like an availability thing where like we just did not have all the carbohydrates available to us all the time. Where now we're spoiled for choice and we can just go into any supermarket, any place in the world and eat whatever we want?
Yeah, absolutely. And the fruit we have now are so much sweeter. It's genetically modified. I sometimes tell my patients, the fruit we have now, it's 100 times sweeter than it was 100 years ago. And it's the farmers have genetically modified because it lasts longer, it's selling better, and we can ship it across all over the world, as you said. So we have all sorts of fruit still in the supermarket, a lot of them from America, could be from Queensland, and they're not local, they're not seasonal, and they're actually processed because, again, it's genetically modified with higher sugar content to sell better, sweeter, and get you addicted. So I actually haven't had fruit recently because it's, again, dead winter in Melbourne. There's not much that is local and seasonal, so better not have it. And we should have what we have around ourselves, so that's seasonal and local, and that is just mainly protein and meat.
Yeah, I love that. I don't miss the fruit in my life. And my problem was not the fruit itself, but I would have the fruit. And then 20 or 30 minutes later, I would be starving. And then I'd want like candy bars and a pie or something. Yeah, like the cravings come back, and it's not necessarily
Mm.
that, oh, I'm going to go and have another piece of fruit. It's that I want junk food now, and the cravings were so strong, and it was just uncomfortable. It's just easier for me to abstain from all that stuff as well. And I'm not sure what the situation is in Australia, but I've read articles around here in America that an apple, for example, is picked 14 months before you see it at the grocery store. Like, people don't consider that these
Wow.
have to be harvested and stored somewhere. They get pumped with stuff. There's wax that's put on them. Like, yeah, not great.
No, wow, I haven't heard that. That's amazing. That's
They call them
terrible.
birthday. I guess in the industry they call them birthday apples because they're typically like over a year old by the time you see them in the store, which is why they taste terrible. Like, they're really sweet, but they don't have very much flavor. At least not around here. Not very good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.